So this will be an introduction to this series, just a high-level overview of how to break into the industry and get started becoming a Web3 developer. All right, so diving right into it, what are Web3 apps? Better known as dapps in the industry currently. They're decentralized applications that utilize blockchain technology to create secure, transparent, and tamper-proof transactions within the application. There have been quite a few popular options like Axie Infinity, started off with CryptoKitties, and ever since then, people have just been making different apps utilizing blockchain technology, which is what we're going to learn about how to do today. So the skills required or needed to start building Web3 apps, web development, you need to have some knowledge of how the web works and how to build web pages using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Utilizing these technologies in particular, you'll want to learn about networking and just how the document object model works for building out a website in the first place. You'll also need some programming fundamentals, so you need to pick up a programming language in order to get familiarized with not just the syntax, but just how programming works in general. So some of the good starter ones for getting into Web3 in particular would be Solidity, JavaScript, and Python. You'll also need to have an understanding of how blockchain technology works in general. And from there, you'll also need knowledge of Ethereum or an alternative network in order to understand what you're doing building out these apps. Ethereum just happens to be the most popular one when it comes to building out mobile or Web3 applications. And lastly, not lastly, you'll need knowledge and familiarity of tools like VS Code or Remix for an IDE, Truffle Suite, and Web3.js. Truffle Suite is a tool suite for building, compiling, and migrating and deploying smart contracts. You'll also need, which is very pivotal, understanding of security best practices and how to prevent vulnerabilities. So when you are making these apps, they're not subject to being hacked. So starting off on the journey to build out a Web3 app or dApp, you really will need to get familiarized with the basics of Web 2. Again, you'll need to understand routing, networking, and the building blocks for building a website and allowing the user to interact with the interface. Then you'll need to spend some time learning about blockchain and Ethereum or other similar networks, Polygon, Avalanche, etc. To get started, you need to have an understanding of these technologies and how they operate. This includes understanding how smart contracts are written and what they do, and the ins and outs and the details of the network itself that you're choosing to build on. It's probably best when you're starting off to just choose one and stick with it so that you get very familiarized with it and then learn another one from there, similar to learning a programming language. Solidity would be the best next step because that's what many people will use to write out the smart contract logic and create the smart contracts themselves. Typically, especially on Ethereum. So good ways to start learning Solidity would be to take an online course. There are plenty of online courses out there. Read books such as Mastering Ethereum or The Basics of Bitcoin and Blockchain. Both these books also walk through how Solidity works and give a good understanding and foundation of Solidity. Another option is just to get out there and practice. Even if you don't know anything, start trying out the little bit that you do learn. And as you make your failures along the way, you'll learn from that. Other options are join or build your own community around building Web3 apps so that you can learn from other peers in the industry. And probably one of the best ways is to contribute to open source projects, because that can be a great way to get real world experience and learn from other developers. You can improve an existing open source project, fix bugs, or add features that you think would be best by opening pull requests in their repository. And the other developers that maintain it would review and approve or deny a pull request depending on whether the code is good to integrate. Another part of the journey would be learning Truffle and Web3 JS. I already talked earlier about how Truffle is a development framework for Ethereum to develop and deploy smart contracts. It'll really help you with your local development environment, testing out the smart contract logic that you're writing for whatever app purposes that you're working on. And Web3.js allows you to interact with the Ethereum network and wallets that are connected to the network for the purposes of the transactions needed for the app that you're building.
Sean, right quick, what is Truffle similar to in the Web2 world? If you could give the people a little bit of relatable source, if you will.
Yeah, I guess the best thing I can relate it to is a framework, even though Truffle isn't really a framework. Regular Web2 framework, though, does give you some out the box logic to help you structure your project. It'll help you start building and testing out your project as well. So, in a sense, it does accomplish some of those goals of a framework.
Okay.
Beautiful. Yeah. And lastly, once you've gone through this journey and educated yourself on all these topics, it's time for you to get your hands dirty, roll up your sleeves, and just get to work. You can start building your first application with this knowledge that you've gained. Start small or simple with a voting or lottery app or just anything that might pique your interest, and gradually get into more complex projects. But the best way to learn, at least from what I believe, is firsthand experience. Just learning from your downfalls, your success as well, and just building projects is probably the most interesting thing as well, in my opinion, since you have something that you can physically show somebody that you created. And that's all. Any questions there?
Yeah, first of all, kudos to you. Always great whenever you come onto the platform and just bless us with your knowledge set. Just like for somebody who's starting out and, as you mentioned, like joining these communities, doing the research, trying to build your own dApp, like for someone who's trying to build their own dApp, like how should they start? Like, should you be trying to solve some kind of huge problem or just starting with like a passion project? Like, what would you recommend?
I mean, I would recommend building a simple game where, like, honestly, the game mechanics don't matter. The important part is focusing on the transactions. Being able to just create a digital playing card, for instance. If you're building your own versions of Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon, you can,
or a poop racing game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's lots of creative ways to do that with the poop racing game, for example. There could be rewards for winning the race, or maybe you're placing bets on how the race goes, plays out. So there's plenty of options. It's just really just gotta try something out once you have an idea, or try to replicate something that exists.
I'm about to say, leave it to Sean and Seven Streams to influence our audience to gamble. We are not in at all encouraging gambling, but if you do make that game, let us know.
Man. Well, we know you have to hop off, but where can the people find you if they have any questions and want to reach out?
At Sean of the Seven Streams, I guess, on Instagram.
Hey,
I'll put some more info together for the next time on the show.
most definitely, most definitely. Powerful segment, 10 minutes of straight fire. We appreciate you, Sean, the Seven Streams. Have a great evening.
All right, take care, y'all.
Peace.